quorum has to be in person now, is that what I understand?
Yeah, quorum has to be in person, and that's 7 people. So we've got a quorum in person. Caroline's on the call. And I think Hang is going to join on the call. Neither of them can vote. So that means we do not have to do roll call votes.
Nice.
So Joe did say he was going to come in late. I'm not sure about John Ryan. And then that is everyone. I don't know if I brought this up at our last meeting, but Walt has decided to leave the board. Too busy. He's still going to be a part of the event, so.
Good thing.
Okay. All right, we're ready.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, welcome to everyone in the room and this is Matthew, sitting in Caroline for this meeting. We're going to start with the call to order. We're going to open it up right now for public comment. I'd just like to make a note here. If anyone has a public comment regarding an agenda item down the line, if you would just hold on to your comments and we will definitely address those during and right after the agenda item is discussed. So we're opening up right now for public comment.
All right, if there's no public comment. John Ryan is also joining. On the call. Whenever he's officially on, I'll tell him he cannot vote. He should know that though.
All right, so we have no public comment at this time. Because I'm gonna take a look at the agenda, looking at the agenda from last month. Oh, I'm sorry. Look at the agenda correct from last month.
Okay. Well, we've got the agenda for this month to approve.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, apologize. I'm still new at this. All right, so today's agenda. Yes,
Second.
thank you. First and seconded.
Okay, so we do not have to do a roll call vote. Anyone online cannot vote. And so then we just do an all in favor. That's all we have to do.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, next item is the approval of the minutes. So we've got actually 2 months of minutes in this packet here, July and August. We need to approve it separately or can we approve it together?
Unless there are any changes, we can approve it together.
To approve the July and August
A second.
2 minutes. Thank you. We have a first and second on that.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Any nays? All right, thank you. Next up, new business.
All right, Sandra, you want to come up? If you want to sit, if y'all can pull a chair right between Jerry and Carol so she can be on the microphone. Sorry, I should have said. All right, Sandra is here with us today from the Hendersonville Merchants and Business Association. They put on our parades downtown. And so they've got a little bit of a proposal on a change to the Christmas parade. I'm just gonna turn it over to you, Sandra.
Hey, over the past 2 or 3 years, of course, we do the 4th of July parade and the Christmas parade, but the Christmas parade, we've had people come to us and say, why don't you do it at night? Why don't you do it at night? Well, they did that year before last and we sort of moved it over. They came to us again this past Christmas and then they've been after us ever since, group of people. And I said, okay, we're going to pursue it to see what we have to do. So we know that our plan of action was to ask the merchants on Main Street what they thought. Because we don't want to do anything that's going to affect them. And everywhere we've talked, they said that the business for the merchants where the parades are at night has been overwhelming. Forest City, North Carolina for one, Canton, Waynesville. They said their businesses at night when they have the parade is overwhelming. Said Forest City, the people drive from everywhere just to go to their parade. Okay, we're going to pursue it. So I said, we started asking some of the merchants and so far, everything we have asked and every person we have asked has been overwhelmingly yes, that they'd like to see a Christmas parade at night. And I said, that's where we're at because we need to go through the process of making sure the Main Street merchants want it. The press, it's okay by the Hendersonville Police Department because they're a big part of our parade because they have to be the ones that man the streets. Even though we have a radio club that helps us, the police is the very important ones because they're manning every block down the street to keep the traffic under control. And that's where we're at, is making sure that we do what we're supposed to do, due diligence to make sure that we're doing what the city wants, the merchants want, so that would benefit everybody.
What time would it be?
Well, our parade's always been the first Saturday in December.
Right.
And the other morning, 10:30. Well, we're proposing to do it on the first Saturday, of December, like at 6 o'clock. We don't want no later. It'll be dark enough by then because it gets darker earlier, and it'll be over by 7. And that way the merchants can still be open without too late at night. Still be plenty of parking, except after 4 o'clock that day. And enough for people can shop and eat or do whatever they want to do. And still be the lights. Everybody wants to see the lights, and Main Street is well lit very nicely. And so we're here at the mercy to find out what the city would like. Or would be, for us to pursue this even farther. Yes, that's why we started early enough so that we'll have.
And who was it that kept saying, let's do it at nighttime? Just,
We've got a bunch of people and so about 4 years ago, Tamara Peacock at Peacock and Company, she says, why don't you do it at night? Well, we sort of put it off because, we thought, well, we didn't, in some places, no, I don't want to do it. But we've had so many different people come to us this time. And I thought, okay, let's start asking questions. Let's see where we can go from here, because that's where we're at.
My brief exposure, I haven't been here in town that long, but the disruption to the non-Main Street businesses during the day, because you can't get to the other side of town, no matter where you are. So it locks down access to businesses either way during the daytime. I think the nighttime proposal is
I think I agree with you on that.
out of sight. Yeah, that's automatic.
So, you've already spoken to several people and you've had a lot of positive.
Yeah, I talked to one this morning, Keller Williams, South Main. Oh, we love it. We love it. Everybody I talked to. I did a survey at the Business Morning Update 4 weeks ago tomorrow. And we passed out little things for them to sign. Would you like to see an evening Christmas parade? And there's about 60 people there and I got 30 cards back and all of them, not one said no, that all, yes, great idea. That was the response I got from the Business Morning Update.
Have you spoken to the businesses that would typically be open when it's open in the morning and closed when it's at night? Because there's multiple businesses that have benefited from that parade being in the morning, but will be closed when you have it at 6
So
p.m.
far, the ones we have talked to said they'd be thrilled to open an extra hour.
I'll just say to add in, I asked Sandra that Tanya Cochran is on their board and I asked if she could post something in the merchants group. Sometimes there's better response if it's not me posting. Maybe people like to read it more. So I'm just gonna kind of count through people who said they liked it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 liked it at night, and 1 said willing to see, and 1 said that it already works well with kids. Why change it? Otherwise, no one commented with a opposing response there. If that.
So I would put this out there, not to put anybody in the spot. We do have the luxury of having several Main Street merchants in the room.
Right.
So if anybody wanted to.
I do.
Opinion, I would appreciate that.
I do.
Sure.
All the years I was a merchant on Main Street, the parade started at 10:30. By the time it finished, you blocked off. You didn't, business start, come back to Main Street like till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This way, it doesn't impact the day's business. It brings people at night. And we used to have some Christmas event at night. And it was always really well attended. People came out, it was the spirit of Christmas. A lot of the stores gave cookies and drinks or whatever. And it was really lovely and it didn't impact the day's business or the parking at all. So I think it's a great idea.
You say the date of the parade again?
December 3rd this year.
The 3rd.
I mean, I'm not a Main Street merchant. Like Phil was saying, anytime there's a closure during the morning on Main Street, it does affect surrounding businesses, but it affects everybody's business in one way or another. So personally, I think it's a good idea personally, but I would like to hear more from Main Street.
Well, you get the day's business, then you get the night business.
What do you think, Mark?
The lights will be on and it'll be.
And it's
It's you, Mark.
very, that's what I'm here for. I want to hear you.
Is Mark, where's Mark?
Opposition to it, however, stay open, we cater to. as well. At nighttime. I think that there is a valid statement that there will be, you will probably face some pushback with some merchants that don't like to stay open late, saying that they're gonna be missing that
One night.
revenue in the afternoon. We find that when the parade happens, any parade happens in the afternoon, we get business before and we get business after. The city does a great job reopening the streets and having put it back up. Again, found a lot of evening events that happen and we always stay open for those events. But I will say that multiple nighttime events, I noticed that a lot of the shops on our block do close. If that means that they're for it or against it, I don't know. I think it's a great idea, Christmas lights at night. We will have no problem enjoying the people coming out at night as well.
That's what we like to hear, and we want to help. That's what we're here to please.
That's a great idea.
So when you mentioned that you did speak to some merchants, do you mind saying what type of merchants? Were they more retail?
Retail.
More retail? Because I know the restaurants will probably.
I think so.
I would
More
definitely.
people and dinner.
And the retail, if it's only another hour. And they're gonna be a lot more
They'll be
people on
there.
the street. And according to Forest City, they have a tremendous, and they're smaller than Hendersonville. They have a tremendous amount of people that come out for the parade. And it makes their business more at night. So, we're listening to what they're saying, and it's Canton and Waynes will have a parade and it brings a lot. I know people from here drive to their places for the parade. We want people to drive from there to here. And that way they'll be buying and eating dinners and whatever they do.
And I just bring that point up because
Oh, I
I
understand.
know that there are some merchants that are struggling to get help. So to prolong their hours later in the evening can affect them. Like I said, I think it's a great idea. We will be totally on board with it.
I think most merchants will.
One
night.
I would say, in my opinion, that during December, if they're not open till at least
That's crazy.
o'clock in retail, then they're missing out on a
That's better.
substantial amount of
And I
sales.
think historically, we've seen that there's been people that don't stay up for other events during the month. The tree lighting. I think having another event at night is just another opportunity for them to see that this could be successful.
Yeah, I think so.
Instead of evening, morning, evening, we can go all evening and maybe some of those places will have more opportunity to have consistent staff there to hear and plan a little better for nighttime.
But I think the hour is good too, 6 o'clock.
Is that-
We agree because we didn't want to be any later because we know children have to go home, go to bed. Us old people have to go.
I do.
But having it as early as we can, and yet it still being dark enough to see the lights without being overboard. And that's why we said at 6 o'clock, no later,
How long do you project it?
an hour, approximately an hour.
An hour.
So time will the street need to be shut down?
Before.
Like
Well,
4 to
we'll leave that-
7.
We're gonna leave that to the police department because they're always in charge of that, but probably
Right.
around 4. Because they got it, and it's not as much as people stopping the people that's coming in for parking, but the people that's already there that gives them time to move. And the parade will start at 6 o'clock. We started on time. So as long as they get them out of there by 6, we're happy with people if they close it at 5, but that might push them too much. So we're gonna leave that up to the police department.
Well, I would also point this out as an opportunity. It sounds like you're flexible as well, that, this year, and if it doesn't work, then you're open to change. But I think this is a good opportunity to point out that we all know our town is changing, it's growing, it's developing, it's evolving. So doing things different and having a different perspective, I think this is a great example of us going forward and having, I think personally, I think it's much nicer to have a lit up Christmas. I think we all agree on that. So I appreciate the comments in the room. Is there anyone on the call that wants to contribute to this discussion? Caroline, how you doing?
Great.
Where's
I
your
think it's-
cocktail?
I'm drinking Diet Coke.
Beach or something? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the beach. I mean, I'm fine with the evening parade. I don't really care either way, I guess. I mean, whatever everybody else wants, I make it work no matter what. So, I mean, we stay open late in the evenings all through from like March or April and we always make money. So it's fine with me.
It's a great idea.
Are there any other towns or cities around close that are having something like Saturday night?
I'm not sure what days some of the parades are. I don't think Forest Cities is that night, and I know Canton and Waynesville are not that night. And I know Asheville doesn't have a nighttime parade. They have, if they have a parade, it's during the day, and Brevard has a daytime parade. So we're pretty much, on that particular day. Some of them have it a week earlier. That's why I said we want to continue with our first Saturday in December. It's where our parade's always been, and we want to continue with that. But yes, we are flexible to working to see how it works, and we'll go back as to what the city asked, but we're asking the city first.
My opinion is I don't have a business on Main Street, but I'd be all for a nighttime parade versus a daytime parade. And I would not want your attendance to be skewed by something else that's happened. And you
Right.
think that it's not a good idea, because I personally think it's a good idea. And something else is going on.
I think around Hendersonville, it pretty much the one before is the lighting is before. I think we've checked out that where we'll be the only major thing that evening
And Old Fashioned Christmas would be the day before
before.
that with carriage ride.
On that level. I even had people call me today, says, I need a Christmas parade application. I need it now. We don't have them yet. We wait till we know what we're doing before we let the applications go out. So I told him, I said, just give me a call in the next couple of weeks and we'll get them out as soon as we can. But we're having calls now for the Christmas application.
It was the old fashioned Christmas that we stayed open.
Mhm.
And let me tell you something. We did amazing business.
Yeah, that's,
And everybody was in costumes and it was just so nice.
yeah, we'll talk a little more on that in our updates, but, yeah, so that's another evening event. Do you want to see anything else on the call or anything?
I mean, it seems to me, I know it's not on the agenda for an action item, but it seems if we have a consensus that this should be a slam dunk. I think we should entertain a motion to approve the change of the time from 10:30 till 6 o'clock.
Nice.
Yeah, so how do you want?
So Carol, made a motion to recommend the evening parade. How's that?
Absolutely.
Okay, second was Betsy,
All right, motion's approved.
or all in favor?
All in favor?
Your fire flower. We will be working closely with the police department.
Yeah.
Because we do what they recommend us to do. And, we had to make some changes last year because of a few incidents that happened in the 4th of July parade. We had to change Santa Clauses, different things but we do what the police department asks us to do.
Yeah.
We go along with everything they recommend.
Yeah, got to answer to them as far as parades go, that's for sure.
We work with them closely.
Well, the one policeman that we did have come to help us with the 4th of July parade said he really liked the idea of.
Yes.
the parade. Hopefully we get him again.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. Thanks for all y'all do.
Yeah.
I'll leave that. And we'll go on, let y'all get busy.
You stick around if you want.
Yeah.
We got people wanting a Christmas parade application. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Andrew.
Be more business morning update, so if y'all.
I'll see you there.
See you there.
Oh, yeah, I'm the host tomorrow.
And we'll tell them in the morning, everything looks good for our evening parade.
Well, we're not the final say on that. Okay.
I'm just gonna say it looks.
Okay, that works.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, moving ahead. This is the big topic of the day. We're gonna get an update here from Arnett Muldrow. We've got Tripp and Sean on the call. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and we're looking forward to your presentation on branding.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you so much. We're thrilled to be here. So we'll jump right in. Sean, I think you've got the controller.
Yes, I do. Let me just get PowerPoint launched here, sharing. And then is everybody seeing the correct screen?
Yep.
Okay.
First of all, we're gonna go fast because we know you've got other items on your agenda, but, and we're happy to open up to questions and answers. This has been a really exciting project for us. We cannot thank you all enough for the groups that you put together and the attendance that we had. Jamie, you and your team just did a rock star job of getting people out. We're going to just jump right in. Sean, why don't you kind of cue it? You know, whenever we look at things like this, we want to kind of take stock of what's been done before in the area, both in 7th Avenue and throughout downtown. And then we felt like it was really important to note some inspiration that helps inspire where we're heading on this. So you'll note the railroad station, the color, just so happens to match Southern Railway. I don't know if that was deliberate when the buyout happened in the early 1900s or not. But certainly the railroad was part of inspiration for this. Another part of the inspiration was some really interesting things that we came to discover when people started talking about Brooklyn. And lo and behold, if there isn't a 7th Avenue in Brooklyn and 7th Avenue Station. And while we know that the history of the name Brooklyn is still subject to discussion, we found that relationship was kind of interesting to see a 7th Avenue located in Brooklyn, a station there, that location. And then the third inspiration, and we felt like it was really important to honor the high school, and the school was open up until the schools were integrated. Of the school are blue and gold. And so that became some inspiration as well. So just some background on that. And then I'll kick it over to Sean to talk about the colors and typefaces that we selected.
Well, a little bit more of the more modern inspiration that we have is the downtown Hendersonville brand itself. And, you know, one of the big topics of conversation that we had in working in 7th Avenue was that 7th Avenue is part of downtown. It's a very unique character district of downtown, but it is still an integral component to downtown. And we're looking at creating more connectivity between downtown and the 7th Avenue district. And there's already some initiatives that are happening with pedestrian wayfinding signage and the B line that's connecting the sidewalks, making it walkable. And we hope that this initiative here is going to continue that effort and really help build connectivity to that. So that being said, we went back to the downtown brand that was established a number of years ago and looked at their color palette and how we could sort of tie in with that palette and create a bit of an extended palette as well, as we look at 7th Avenue as a bit of an arts district and you know, some of the artistic things happening there with the murals and some of the revitalization of the buildings. You know, we wanted to expand the color palette a little bit. So we took that inspiration and updated it from what was done in downtown to build a little bit broader of a color palette.
Yep, and you'll see the colors of the railroad station, the colors of the high school. The red color is really more inspiration from the brick streets and the red brick buildings. And then, of course, with the connection to the Greenway, we wanted some green in there as well. So there's some, then with typeface.
So then moving into typeface again, pulling heavily from the downtown brand and looking at what was established there. We wanted to play off of that to show that consistency and just update its application.
And then from there, we move into a position statement or a brand statement. And our objective in this is to kind of do a few things. One is to show we did our due diligence on the history and listen to what we heard from all the input sessions. So that's one reason. The other is we do like to have kind of what we would call a be real narrative that can be used in pieces. Sometimes these are used in videos, sometimes they're used in websites, sometimes they rotate through and showcase the tagline. So I'll briefly read this. We're doing a couple of tweaks and edits to it, but it starts out with the history and then kind of goes through what's happening and on to the future. So we're downtown 7th Avenue. It's here that the history of Hendersonville evolves when the Transylvania Railroad connected Hendersonville to the towns and resorts of Western North Carolina. Today used drays to carry the bounty of Henderson County's orchards and farms to Asheville, Spartanburg, and points beyond. Sean?
Oh, sorry.
By reading flow. It's here that freed African Americans came from rural settlements like the Kingdom of the Happy Land to seek opportunity and employment around the depot and in the businesses of 7th Avenue. The district was surrounded by a thriving neighborhood called Brooklyn, witness to redevelopment, removal, and displacement. Today, green meadows and legacy businesses stand as reminders of the diverse history here. It is here that our landmark depot stands sentinel, surrounded by commercial buildings, diverse businesses, and a new energy on the avenue. Inspired entrepreneurs are opening businesses and renovating buildings. Farmers once again gather here to sell fruit, vegetables, and food to people who come from near and far. Artists are transforming once barren spaces into places of whimsy and imagination. And trains still travel now on model tracks, sparking the imagination of young and old. 7th Avenue is part of the grand adventure of downtown Hendersonville, a place that sets the standard of what a revitalized downtown can be. We invite you to enjoy a stroll along the avenue, experience the intricate mosaic of our history, art in our galleries and on the street, explore places where repurposing what is old into something new is part of our rich character. We are 7th Avenue, downtown's creative edge. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So Sean?
So this is the type treatment for 7th Avenue. This is about as simple and as refined as it's going to live in the wild, but you can see here we've set it around a bit of this mosaic pattern. And as Tripp alluded to with the colors in here, we took inspiration from some of the architecture, and we actually started down a different path earlier in the process where it was a little bit more of a rigid brick structure, finding that inspiration in all the pieces that make up this district. And in talking about the mosaic of the community itself and its history and the people and the arts, we started leaning more into this mosaic pattern and this texture here. And so that kind of inspired, again, based on some of the early imagery and some of the ideas that we were talking about, this simple type treatment of 7th Avenue as a district, but encircled in this mosaic pattern. And you can see it can go from fairly simple and refined from, 2 or 3 colors on the left to very colorful and just bright and vibrant on the right. And these can be used in many applications for many different reasons, whether it's events or building markers and different things within the district. And so, even with an ornate, as many shapes as this may have in it, we always do want to make sure that these designs work in more simple single colors as well. And so showing here how it works in the different various color palette components.
And we do need to give Jamie credit. She is solely responsible for suggesting that the H and 7th incorporate the how shall we say it, the squiggle that's in the 8 and overall downtown brand. So Jamie gets some kudos for that.
Very much so. And so even carrying that into an update for the historic depot itself, and carrying it into this circular badge style design lockup, but converting that texture around the perimeter of it more to train tracks and utilizing a similar design as to what they're already using for the logo of that, but creating something that kind of starts to fall within a system that we're recommending here, using the updated color palettes and the typefaces. And then how some of these examples of how it could look in the wild, there are currently a number of street poles that have plaques on them denoting the 7th Avenue district. And so just, showing a different treatment of how these could be applied onto the top of the poles. And they actually match up really nicely with the little Hendersonville seal there on the street sign itself. And then into bannering as well. This is a very important consideration for districts. 7th Avenue is very important, but it also has a number of streets off of 7th Avenue from Maple and some of the other corridors that are having revitalization from the breweries and some restaurants and other things that are happening down there. And so by utilizing banners, we can create these corridors of color as people drive through or walk this district. We can draw their attention down to the other destinations as well, or promote events. And even just showing a rendering of how one of the current banners could be updated. And a sign treatment similar to what Hendersonville's been doing in downtown, but placing it at that triangle there at the top of the district to let people know, just to build awareness and let people know that there's more happening down that corridor. And then even looking at updating in some pedestrian wayfinding. Downtown has done a lot with their pedestrian wayfinding, and how do we carry that over into the 7th Avenue district, and just looking at some potential examples here for some parking signs and some directional signs. The county has done great with their wayfinding, but once you get into the district, we can really get more granular and really help direct people to their final destinations here. And then even getting into some implementation ideas about, ways to incorporate this to drive engagement and awareness into the district. An idea that I had in talking about building awareness for people was just 7 things to do on 7th Avenue each month, whether that's, tasting a new creation at the bakery, or having a beer, that's being launched, or seeing an art showing that's unveiling at the gallery. Just coming up with these 7 things every month that people can, just go down there and experience and expose them to all of the assets and the things that the 7th Avenue has to offer. So we have a couple of other ideas here as well for just simple promotional pieces. These could be done in social media. They could be done in local print. These formats could easily be converted over into other types of promotions, whether it's billboards and other banner ads and things of that nature. But this is where we really get to play around with this concept of the fact that the 7th Avenue is physically, geographically the edge of downtown. And so, that's what inspired our thinking towards moving into the downtown's creative edge. But there's also all of these other things happening on the edge of downtown, whether it's the arts or the history or the flavor. This is where we really get to start to play around with the concept of all of these modifiers for what's on the edge of downtown.
We're certainly not limited to these, and we're it could be inventive, innovative, ingenious, inspired, visionary. So you can imagine all the
intrepid.
Yes, we covered that. So
definitely. And so again, just looking at some design concepts of using a bit of this mosaic texture to show a lot of the photos that we were able to document while we were there. And I'm sure that there's a lot more that other organizations and people have taken of downtown and 7th Avenue that could be used in these. But taking that concept of what's downtown's unique edge with the train station, downtown's musical edge with music at the breweries. Downtown's delicious edge at the bakery, and I'm excited to get back up there and try some noodles as well. The Noodle Lady looks like a really interesting place. And then into some simple swag of, you know, showing what it could look like on a hat or a t-shirt. I mean, you know, reusing that mosaic texture to just add a little color to some of these print goods that can be put in the retailers to promote a little bit of community pride, but also hopefully send some visitors home with something to remind them of their visit. So that's what we have prepared so far. And so, you know, once we get to the approval point, and then we will circle back around with the team and talk about the punch list of other event extensions or other designs that they would like to see, that we'll flesh those out and then prep the whole package together and come back for a return visit to present everything and do the implementation workshop.
All right, well, thank you very much for that, Tripp and Sean. I'd like to just start the conversation here with kind of just emphasizing to everyone that this was never about a logo. This was much more than that, and there's been a lot that's gone through this process, and it has been a process. A lot of evolution of what you just saw there in the presentation. So first and foremost, I just want to let everyone know that community character team, your team, who has been point on this, we're very, as a member of that team, we're very enthusiastic about what you just saw. So I mean, there's been a lot that's gone through that. And I just wanted to put that up, that your community character team is very enthusiastic about this. There's also a lot in this toolkit that we can use down the road, a lot of different materials and different ideas. So that said, I think what I want to do first is go ahead and open it up for public comment, just because we announced that earlier that we were going to readdress. So if there is any public comment as it pertains to the 7th Avenue branding.
We did have a comment in the chat from John Ryan about the amount of colors and if that's too many different colors. I don't know if there's any thought on that.
So my response to the too many colors is that the multicolor version there might not be used frequently, but it's an option that we feel confident in providing to the community to use when they see fit. Whereas with the more simplified versions, and we'll be prepping these out in, you know, single and multicolor versions. So the more refined version might end up becoming the more consistently utilized version, as you'll see through the renderings that we showed. You know, I'm using the one on the left most frequently, but the other options in the toolkit are just that. They're options for, whether it's seasonality or different events that we want to use coordinating colors for those functions, then you'll have those in the toolkit, but they might not necessarily be used frequently.
Well, and they may also be used, if you go to the next slide, Sean, for, when you have different color t-shirts or different applications, background, just prepping the different ones. And some of them may just stay on the shelf, for a long time. But one of the things that we noticed in looking at how you all are operating presently is that we do have quite a few colors in this palette, but what's happened overall is that there's no real color palette that y'all are locked in on. So that's a little bit of our scope that I'd like to, tick back to at some point on the H itself, and maybe getting some color consistency there, because it's kind of all over. It's been around for a while, so it's just got a lot of different colors that have been applied to it.
You're using the H. Did you ever think of putting the little leaves like it is for the H that we use everywhere?
That was a point that we did discuss at some point, but at the size it is, adding those leaves, they became more of a distraction where you didn't quite get the detail at their scale. And so we pulled the leaves out just for clarity's sake.
good observation. It's one that did come up. And I love when we talk about this stuff because it's some of those details when it sounds good until you try it.
Yeah, so my input on the colors is that there are a lot of colors being presented there, and they're all just ideas. I think the main fundamentals of the consensus with the design is the placement of the 7th, the avenue, and the district, that placement, and then the mosaic, which we keep kind of coming back to. This mosaic, this tapestry that 7th Avenue District is dynamic, it's unique, it's coming together of lots of different ideas and people. But as far as like the color scheme, I think, maybe, you talked about like the blue and the gold. So maybe, having like a main color scheme, or like, the entryway to the 7th Avenue District, that's obviously important signage. So maybe, looking at that a little bit more with the blue and the gold together with that.
The 7th Avenue, the one on the left with the dark blue, the colors on the outside, because I think to me is also a message about the diversity of the community. The one on the left.
Yeah, and we wanted to definitely have that read through artistically and in certain applications as well.
So the colorful one, I mean, we looked at a lot of stuff through this process, and when we saw that colorful one, several of us just went, oh my God, I love it. If we did like an art thing or something for children, we could use that colorful one. And then we talked about like, if we had the green, we could do it for, if we had like a recycling initiative. And I have seen, well, there's one particular district that I keep going back to that I loved how they had done their logo. As you move throughout the district, the color changes. It looks the same, but the color changes to indicate that you're like now in more of like a brewery area, or now in more of a restaurant area or retail or whatever. So that's kind of a very short amount of words about how we got to right here. Also, one more thing about the colors too. When you do merch, if there are a lot of colors, sometimes people will buy 2 or 3 because they can't choose a color. If they have 2 to choose from, they choose one or the other, and that's it. So.
Good point.
And I just want to point out in the chat, John Ryan, the depot colors are historically accurate and were used by the railroad as a standard until 1950 or so. So that would be the gold and the green.
And Sean's going to check on that again to verify that we sampled the color out of the depot. That's one of those details that we'll check on. I think we did. He thinks we did, but we want to double check on it.
Other comments?
So is the steering committee involved in this still?
Yeah, so kind of just a history of where we got to. So we had our meetings when was that, last month, August? I don't remember. And so then the steering committee received a survey where they responded, and that was where we came to the conclusion on having the avenue of crossing the 7th. And then they had some feedback regarding the mosaic. And so then our technical committee, which is just a smaller, quick review committee of me, Matthew, Caroline, and Lindsay Simpson, provided some extra feedback yesterday leading up to this meeting today. And so the steering committee has not seen, because we just saw it yesterday, the mosaic rather than the bricks. And so then the next step would be having the steering committee meeting to give any additional feedback on this, plus going through that punch list like Sean was talking about of what are all the things that we want to see as part of that.
And by way of background, the circle, the mosaic that Jamie's speaking of, it still reads as bricks. It can read as bricks on the left version. The prior, we didn't want to show you all the old versions. It's just, we kind of moved beyond it, but it was a lot more brickish looking. this is more slash mosaic, or if you see bricks and that's what you want to see, that's great.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to schedule the steering committee. It's a lot of people to pull together for that one. And I wanted to make sure we were ready to have a full-fledged meeting before that. So I'm gonna work on scheduling that.
Well, I'd like to say this, Trip and Sean. I think it's a hell of an effort thus far. Personally, I'm very impressed. I love the logo approach. I also really appreciate the way you've woven in the different aspects of the 7th district. You know, the music and food and art and history and the depot and the creative edge is genius.
Well, thank you so much. We had wonderful input from a lot of folks, so we couldn't have done it without such good input. And not all the meetings were easy. You know, we had some tough conversations, so it's very helpful.
Yeah, I agree with a lot that's been said. I think it looks wonderful. I prefer the one that's the red, white, and blue. It looks freakish. It has a very old school look to it, like the district. Even has a little patriotic reference. But like Matt was saying, I think that having the options to see it in different colors doesn't mean we have to stick to one of them. It gives us, you know, a variety to use it in different applications. If it's leaning towards the farmer's market or a children's event or a parade, I mean, it's great to have that option. I do like the red, white, and blue one. I think it's a nice mosaic brick looking on the outside, which matches that district very well. I think
I mean, on that note, you know, a lot of what we've been talking about ties in, of course, to streetscape and how does this all look? The streetscape is happening. So, you know, like kind of at the top of the block or the bottom of the block, looking up and down 7th Avenue, what are you seeing? You know, and you saw that with the banners where there was different color patterns, but it's still the same logo, so the same design, and the mosaic repeats throughout. So that's the continuity looking down the street. And it's very confident. This is what we're putting out there, and we're really proud of it, and we're excited about it, and how it ties, especially how it ties in with streetscape.
Yeah, and that's really what started this all, like 2 years ago, was we were trying to figure out that gateway sign for 7th Avenue, and then 2 years later, we've come up with this great product.
It's been really fun working with you all. We look forward to continuing.
All right, thank
Definitely.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank y'all. Have a great afternoon.
Yes, enjoy. Thank you so much.
I like how they got everybody involved as well. I thought that was
Yeah, we
a
had,
good point.
our the steering committee is it's a lot of 7th Avenue folks and people who are involved with both 7th Avenue and the Green Meadows community. It's a really good group that we have, I'd say.
And it's incredible to see it firsthand, because good design is always process. You come up with ideas and you're just spitballing ideas, you're throwing stuff. You know, some people call it skunk works, where you're just sitting in a room and talking about whatever comes to mind first, but there's been an incredible process. So what you see is really the culmination of that. And I couldn't be happier with how it's been and what the final products are. So, all right, are we ready to move on to team projects and updates?
Yeah, all right. So I was just trying to go through everything that we're working on, which is a lot right now. And just give an update on where we are with things. I'm just gonna kind of go through this quickly, and then after I go through it, then if anybody wants to talk about anything, we'll do that. Okay, so first, the special event policy and fee update. We talked about this earlier this year about changing our special event policy, because currently it's a vendor fee. But what we want to do is can't think of the word, but make it to where there are only a few different types of street closures for people to select from, instead of just people come to us. Yeah. And so then those packages would be different rates, because we have some events that don't have vendors, and so they don't pay anything. And it's a pretty significant costs to the city on that. And some events that close downtown maybe shouldn't close downtown or should be closed in different ways or smaller footprints or different ways for that. So I will, for our October meeting, have a more finalized proposal, what we're looking at for that. Okay, the sidewalk dining review. We had lots of conversations about that last month, I believe. What the plan is for that is for our community character team next month, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a list of everything that is not compliant with sidewalk dining. And so then the community character team will review that and see if there are any common issues. And if there are things that everyone is not following and we believe that there's a reason for that, it might be worth it for some changes to the sidewalk dining rules that we have. And if the community character team decides if there's, if it's only one or two things and everyone else is following it, then maybe we shouldn't change it. And then after that point, we'll have a grace period for compliance. And really at that point, it'll be time for sidewalk dining renewals in spring. Okay. Parking meters and permit implementation. As you know, we have a parking garage across the street. Looks and I would say that that's one of the best looking parking garages I've ever seen. And kudos to y'all who were on the board, Jared and Chris and Carol, who were on the board at the time, because the design of it is very, very nice.
You're welcome.
Goes with your bare head.
The Lego garage.
Yeah, and so we've had a lot of parking conversations and everything regarding parking. We've got the parking access control systems that we're reviewing bids or proposals for right now. We have already selected the contractor for the kiosks. Tentatively, the proposed fees we're looking at for the Dogwood lot, which would be our exterior parking lot, which would be targeted for downtown employees at $25 a month. Interior lots, which would be like the Azalea lot, Spruce lot, Maple lot, which would be a $60. And then I have written garage lot, but that means the garage for $80 a month. The deck is slated to open around February, March, at which point the meters on Main Street and the avenues will begin. That's in between Church and King. On Main Street and the avenues, as we just talked about earlier this year, should be the premium parking. And that would be $2 an hour with the first 30 minutes free on Main Street and the avenue. Even though the first 30 minutes are free, people will still, in order to manage that, they still need to check in on the Park Mobile app or in the kiosk. We're still just trying to figure out the process for that. And so the biggest part of that process is going to be making sure that people have the Park Mobile app downloaded, because that's going to be the easiest way to park downtown.
That was very good, like me,
Mhm.
but it was brought to my attention. Being citizen, I thought it was a great idea. Has there been any thought or anyone brought up motorcycle parking or an area for motorcycle parking on me or on an avenue?
I'll make a note of that because I don't have any answers on that, but that's a good question.
Is that a rate increase from its current?
Currently, there's no parking,
In the lots?
No, I think it's $1 per half hour in the lots currently. Or it might be $1.50 per hour for the lots. I'm not exactly sure. It should be the same or roughly. I can't remember off the top of my head. And so then the lots in the garage, $1.50 per hour. I think that's what it currently is. So our next step, or we're meeting with the city attorney and the police regarding ordinance changes that have to happen. And that's just as far as enforcement. There's not really a standardized, there's really not a way or not a good way of enforcing people. A lot of people have racked up a bunch of tickets, and there's not a good way to collect on that. I probably shouldn't say that in the meeting. Yeah, and so that's what we're working on is after X amount of tickets, you would get a boot, and then if it's not paid within a certain amount of time, you would then be towed. So working on that escalation for that. What the plan though is when the meters start, the first ticket, don't take advantage of this, but that would be a warning, and that's more of an educational warning, because there's gonna be a lot of people who aren't gonna understand how to do anything. And so that first one is a learning experience. When you do something wrong, you learn from it. But then, as a part of the ticket escalation, even though it's a warning, as in you don't pay anything, it still is on that record of,
Still counts as the ticket.
yeah, it counts towards it. You just don't have any issues with or consequences on that until your next ticket.
We still, the city's still considering getting a vehicle with the camera software.
Yeah, so that's a part of the, I don't know if we've done that bid yet, or that's a part of another one. So we have a parking vehicle, and so then it will have a mobile license plate reader in it, so they'll be able to drive down the street.
Know which ones are violated.
Yeah, they get dinged on it. And one of the parts of the police ordinances will be, no backing into spaces, which currently you shouldn't be backing into spaces on Main Street anyway, because how would you do that other than going the wrong direction on Main Street? But that will be something that will also be a ticketed offense, is parking backward or backing into spots.
The meters 24 hours?
No, the meters would be from 9 to 7, yeah.
9 to 7.
Mhm. We're looking at November 9th in the evening or late afternoon of having a Q&A parking meeting. I don't have stuff not set in stone, but it's tentative right now.
Is there still some, I know there was some talk of kind of like get the word out to people for downloading the app. I think it was maybe Rhythm Brews and or the farmer's market. Is that still?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be possible for Rhythm and Brews, because I just got the information back from them the end of last week and Rhythm Brews. We are planning to do that for the farmer's market, holiday events, Halloween, things like that. By then we'll have more information.
Retreat would be a lot of people.
Yeah, and because what it'll be is like a promo code. So people download the app and they get a promo code for maybe like 3 hours or something like that, 3 couple hours. And with that, there's parking, there are some options for parking validation that I still haven't completely figured out, but businesses could validate parking. I know in the deck, and then we're still trying to figure out how it would work in the most simplified way with the Park Mobile
What
app.
about disabled parking? That's exempt?
Yeah, currently.
Okay.
All spots, that was brought up in the meeting.
Yeah, that was brought up, and that was not, like, I don't know if that's something that's further going to be discussed or not on that, on handicap parking. While we're on parking, is there anything else? Anything else on parking?
The city plan on getting a tow truck.
No, you just boot them, then they have to get their own token.
No, they would be booted and then they would tow. And I know that there's been issues with bad towing practices in private lots.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, and so what happens, and the police can speak to this much better, but the police basically have like a towing rotation where they have vetted tow companies who they call when they tow, that are like legit companies that they have reviewed. And so it's not any towing that the police or the city is doing have been fully vetted on that. Now, when it comes to private lots, I know that they are looking, the city attorney and the police are looking at some ways that there can be more regulation on it. It's hard. There's not a lot that you can regulate on private lots, but you can regulate some things in towing regarding payments that are accepted, which has been a problem. And I believe on holds on the vehicle and signage. But I don't have a lot of information on that.
I just want to compete with the city.
No. Hopefully you'll get it. Hopefully you'll get it. Yeah. Anything else on parking? Buy up all the boots and then we'd have nowhere else to buy them from. Okay, events. Big news. So the Friends of Downtown Hendersonville, which is our nonprofit, will be taking over Garden Jubilee. Are us.
What?
So the TDA, had done it previously. They had figured out with their new director that they really should not be in the business of doing events. We kind of put it off, hoping that they would have somebody come along who wanted to keep Garden Jubilee downtown and do it. That was not us. But there was a risk of it going to the Ag Center. And with Garden Jubilee being a very good event for downtown, we did not want that to happen. So we're gonna have we're working on a contract with them. So I guess it's not official that we're taking it, but it's just under discussions to where they would pay us, which would cover our startup costs, insurance costs, and an amount of money to help for us to pay someone as a 1099 employee of or contractor of the Friends of Downtown to do the vendor management of the event. So we're working on an RFP for that.
We're keeping it the same weekend.
For next year, yes, but we're open to future discussions on changing it. It's too late.
I think.
Mhm. Okay.
It's a big, for us, in Main Street, it's a
Huge.
big kickoff to the summer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think after we get through with the first year, if there's future discussion on changing it, we'd be open to it, whatever is the best for businesses downtown, especially if we can get a good, for us, we don't have the capacity to really run it, but we have the capacity to pay somebody else to run it.
It's a good kickoff.
Yeah.
The Apple Festival's not only closing, but it's also a kickoff to the holiday season.
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm. And it does generate a revenue from vendors. Meredith's last day is Thursday.
Meredith who?
Party at hand.
So Meredith has done an amazing job. She started the farmer's market basically for us and for Hendersonville on Maple Street and did a wonderful job with that. And because Meredith started about a month before I'd started, and she's just done a fantastic job and will be hard to replace.
During a pandemic, she started a farmer's market. Don't forget that part.
Very true. And she took the bear auction and made it virtual and made it the most successful bear auction the past 2 years. And Rhythm and Brews and Christmas and holidays and all of the great stuff that she's done.
We need to stop letting people do such a good job, so.
So we will miss her. So
Can I get a little mushy?
yeah.
You know me. So, yeah, just to continue on that a little bit. Meredith, what you've done for this city is huge and it will continue well after you've left us. So talk about contribution to your community, contribution to just the general public. I mean, I can't overemphasize the value of what you have done and the direction you've helped put our city in, and it's just, it'll live on. So thank you. for
Thank
everything.
you. I could say the city's done a lot for me too. Like,
So now you can't leave. Now you really can't leave.
Maybe I'll be back. Got a lot to learn.
Thank you.
We will be hard to replace, but we are segue. We are going to interviews next week for replacement on that.
Is it just staff or do you have a committee doing the interview?
It's me and Lou and Dakota.
Where is it posted?
It's posted on the city's website.
Your website?
Yeah, we've had about 25 applicants. And they, a lot of really good ones. All right, so upcoming events, this Saturday at the Farmers Market is Hispanic Heritage Day. So it's featuring some of our Hispanic and Latinx vendors. It's not as big as we initially planned for it, but it's the first year doing it, so we'll be able to hopefully work with some more of our partners to do more for future years. October 22nd at the Farmers Market, we have partnered up with IDAF Events, who does a bunch of races downtown to do the trick or trail race. The October markets have been pretty slow historically, because that's when, you know, produce has kind of died down. So Meredith and Dakota have looked at other things we can do to bring people to those days. So that will bring a influx of people on October 22nd. Rhythm and Brews Thursday, come out, it's the last one of the season, bluegrass. Bear auction bidding open today. We already have, what is it, $18,000?
Great.
I ended up there with one of our bears already sold thousands. Somebody bought at the pineapple price. About 5 of the other bears already have bids, so. Yeah.
Awesome.
How is that compared?
Similar. Yeah, people like get excited about them. Couple other dates coming up, Treat Street, October 31st, that's a Monday. The tree lighting is the day after Thanksgiving. Old Fashioned Christmas, December 3rd. And on December 3rd and December 17th, December 3rd will be carriage rides and December 17th will be holiday train rides. And so Old Fashioned Christmas and the carriage rides and the train rides were funded by a grant from the TDA to do. They had previously done that, so that's another partnership that we've gotten with the TDA. All right, anything else, any questions on events? We're getting late. Okay, we had 2 zoning text amendments that came to the Economic Vitality team, and there was a pretty lengthy discussion there, so I didn't want to have it as another too much of a lengthy discussion here unless people want to have a discussion on it. So the first one was so these were both applicants, so not staff initiated. So the first one is parking minimums in C1, which is the central business district. Previously, there currently are parking minimums of 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit if a dwelling unit has more than 5 residences. However, in other districts and in 7th Avenue District, there are no parking minimums. And so what the applicant had requested was to eliminate parking minimums. And the Planning Board's Legislative Committee also recommended removing all parking minimums for downtown. But what we had suggested, or what I had suggested, was instead of removing all of parking minimums, reduce it down to 1 and then have a future conversation of if a developer would like to not have a minimum of 1 space per dwelling unit, they would then pay a fee in lieu of. So basically that means like when a developer in town is required to put in sidewalks or something like that, and they don't want to do it, they pay a fee, which then gives the city the money to build sidewalks. And so what the idea is that if they did not want to build parking, they would pay a fee that would go into the parking enterprise fund, which would then give us more ability for building parking down the line. That's not a part of this current zoning text amendment, but zoning text amendment is put here to answer the initial applicant with a future conversation of fee in lieu. Any questions on that? Comments? Multifamily and Seventh Avenue District. So there was a request to allow, so currently in the Seventh Avenue District, within the small area that's the National Register Historic District, multifamily is allowed. What this request is for is to allow it in all of the Seventh Avenue district. So that would just extend farther down from the train tracks to the Greenway, and then farther down Locust Street. So it basically says, what this proposal or what the Planning Board Legislative Committee have agreed or have recommended are that multifamily can and could be allowed, or so to change it to allow it. But if it's on ground floor, so if it's facing Seventh Avenue, it has to have some non-residential component. So that way it keeps that commercial character of a building. We had some discussion on that at the Economic Vitality Committee there. And that there weren't a significant amount of comments related to that. Any comments, questions on that?
I gotta make one comment. Allowing that or whatever, which I got no problem. These people just need to realize that there may be noises early in the morning or late at night from businesses or trucks or things like that. You know, it's up to them if they want to have an apartment next door to business, but keep in mind that a year down the road, they can't come back complaining, and all of a sudden, somebody's got to quit doing what they do.
Yeah. It's actually, the applicant was somebody who had bought a building that already has apartments there. It's that,
That shouldn't.
yeah.
It's not a reason why.
Yeah, it's that, what is it, red, that red, is it red or orange-ish kind of,
Down in the old transmission place.
yeah.
Baseball.
But that, I'll have them make a note on that.
But there's also one guidelines that go along with it, is one of my concerns where someone buys out of 6 or 7 buildings and just puts a huge apartment complex back there, but this guideline said.
Well, I'm not a proponent of multifamily anywhere within the MSD, but on Seventh particularly. Our zoning has not done anything to restrict or make unique the MSD from the commercial C1. It's everything is allowed except 2 or 3 businesses or operations that, you know, are precluded from both Main Street and 7th. But a lot of stuff is allowed that does not benefit the MSD. The whole point of this is to make money for the city through consumer-related, retail-related businesses that are paying, you know, taxes back to the city.
Well, the residential property would pay taxes as well.
Going to the county.
No, they pay
Very little.
in county, city, and MSD tax. They would also pay the same property tax that an MSD property would, just
But
clarify.
that doesn't do the businesses that much good.
I think well, from what I heard from the meeting that we were in, part of the guidelines will also be that the first floor has to be commercial, but the upper floors, if they want to build up, can be residential.
Just the first floor has to, the front has to be commercial.
You can have an entrance to the residential, but the first floor has to be a commercial.
Well, no, it's that the first floor can have residential, however, there has to be some non-residential in the front was what
Yeah.
the proposal was.
That's a problem for me. I think the if it were second floor or third floor, you know,
That's-
just like Main Street, you get, you know, an opportunity to have some nice apartments or condos. Albeit on Seventh, there's just not that much currently that would lend itself to that. But on the ground floor where the retail traffic resides, you know, I don't have, you know, we're living proof of it right now, what can happen. And I don't care if it's the rescue mission or an attorney's office, right? It's not doing anything for traffic, sidewalk traffic, walk-in traffic for the businesses in that area. So certainly first floor, you know, if they want to preclude that and it has to be a commercial business, retail, then yeah, okay. Right, but to allow apartments on the ground floor.
I would just say that in the Main Street district, ground floor is allowed currently.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
I would argue that as well.
And I was actually kind of surprised when I found that out, but I think the market has just dictated it more or less.
Yeah, that and cell phone stores don't do a damn thing for the businesses downtown.
They're retail though, so you can't
I
type of retail versus.
know.
Really. Okay, I can put those notes in there. Yeah, I can put that as comment for that because then this would go to city council.
The thing, the one point that Phil made that I think is worth noting again is that the zoning does not do anything to make it unique. That was an interesting statement, and that's worth noting, I think, specifically, Jamie.
I can do that. One thing that we'd like to do, but because this was, so basically, whenever there's a applicant for a rezoning or a zoning text amendment, then the planning staff have to, you know, take that application and move forward. And then there's other ones that are like staff initiated one, where it would be more of, you know, planning for the future. Because this one was an applicant, it does have to go through the processes for what they're applying for. But we do want to and need to think of how zoning does support and help the district. We're doing a comprehensive plan in the next year, and that should help with it, but I know that doesn't solve the problem for today. But I'll write up those notes because I think those are valid points.
I got one question,
Yeah.
because based on a particular building that's already been being used for that particular reason, why are they coming to you to rezone it?
Someone bought it.
So this is initiated by a developer and a builder that's coming in and trying to do the right thing. So they're purposely trying to work with the city instead of just going behind their back. I think that's a valid point to think, that this person isn't just coming in and saying, I don't care, and they could have bought that building and done nothing, collected those rents and never cared, never rezoned it, never tried to do the right thing, and they are trying to do the right thing. So there's
But they bought it and it was being used for exactly what they wanted for many, many years. And
I'm sure a lot of this has to do with that they're gonna have to pull permits to update it.
Yeah.
And then to your point, I agree with you. What I said earlier was, instead of just rezoning those buildings, they want to have the whole code redone. The entire area.
So in that meeting, the point was that this is a quicker fix for them to update it.
But we need to think about it, even though it's a quicker fix, it's better for 7,000.
Right.
And even that particular thing, if it's a new owner, if somebody bought it, are they going to put, there's a lot more room there than that one with the building. Are they going to have apartments next to that and through there, which, and to his point, takes away from the business part?
You know that if it's low income housing, because of the area that it's in, do we know anything about it?
I don't think that that's something that we can necessarily have
Just because.
There might be-
So it was brought as a zoning issue and that's why.
So or Fred Mays has his hand up. Are you okay with him? He's on the planning board saying something.
I'm okay with that.
Hey, Fred, you can unmute. I see your comment there. Are you just gonna talk?
No, I can jump on. Sorry, maybe too loud. The guys at hands-on are drilling through concrete. That was part of a statement I've already put together for city council, but I'll just go back and kind of read that and finish it out for you guys. What I put there in the chat. I couldn't paste it all from my phone. But no, I very much do not support this zoning text amendment. The short version without reading it to you is the two buildings the applicant wants to renovate. It's a fantastic plan. I like every aspect of it. He's taking existing buildings, bringing them back to life as multifamily residential. I believe it is short-sighted to make a broad change to that entire historic district. So it's all of the C2 that is inside of the historic district is included in this change and it goes through. I think with us in the middle of the 7th Avenue visioning process, the comprehensive plan, that we should not make wholesale changes in that way. I also, one of the things I'll highlight to the city council is the applicant's stated intention to change the character of the community and make it more appealing to hipsters specifically. He wants to have the ability for his wife to walk around that area and doesn't like what's there now. Just the whole approach of what he's doing, I think is a little bit underhanded. He already owns 5 buildings either in or adjacent to that zoning district and is attempting to purchase all of the buildings on 7th Avenue that will sell to him. He's been turned down for quite a few. So I think doing this as a zoning text amendment instead of either a conditional zoning request or a zoning change for those 2 buildings, I think is an underhanded way to get around the system.
Matthew, if also, will you ask Ken Fitch if it's okay with you? He's a member of the public, but he does go to every city council meeting and usually has interesting viewpoints. I'd like to hear what he has to say if he wants to say anything. If you want to allow public comment.
I would at this point. Ken, are you able to jump on and then talk to us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, I agree with the statements that have been made because the text amendment does not include any standards for design or anything else. And so you have a problem that you could have a whole block of new modern buildings that have nothing unique about them. We've seen this generic architecture that is sometimes employed for developments. And so in terms of making this a unique district that is also has diversity, there are issues here. The word gentrification came up. And of course, that's going to be a touch a raw nerve in the community in terms of what would happen here, because this is not a conditional zoning that would have a review of how the project functions. This would be development by right within the district. And so therefore you have no control. No, you're entitled to do multifamily housing, and it could be something that does not contribute to the unique character of the district that you're spending all the time in trying to create that. You've done all this branding, and yet it may not apply, would end up occurring by right. And then that's the problem, because there are some districts that have standards, this does not. And I also mentioned about parking. In this district, there's no requirement for parking. If you have dense residential use there, where are those residents going to park? And will that interfere with the commercial parking available? I know that's a big issue in that commercial district. So there needs to be greater thinking about something like this and how it affects this entire project. I don't know about this visioning issue, but that is clearly what is needed to make this happen in the right way that really uplifts everybody and all the work that people have been putting into to making 7th Avenue revitalized, but also that includes all the people who live there. So yeah, I think Fred made this proposal maybe should be a CZT zone.
And go down to Black Rose.
Yeah, he's new.
Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because the proposal for this specific project, just to do a specific zoning for that, but to include the entire district. I mean, I think you'd have problems that you'd have no control over because it's development by right in accordance with the text. And this happens often. We've seen this in the city. So yeah, I think it is something that needs to be carefully thought.
So definitely appreciate your comments. I will point this out through community character. We are currently addressing and working with historic preservation, whether we're going down that route of local historic district or design guidelines. So we're very much aware that we need to implement at the very minimum some design guidelines for new construction, for remodeling, what that looks like. So that is definitely something we are in the process of working with historic preservation to come up with something to submit to you all about what those guidelines might be.
Planning board already voted for one to allow this to happen, right?
Right.
Yeah, because the timing of that meeting fell before this one. So
Yeah,
it is,
check up a little bit. Just
yeah.
it should not be if it's a specific and he wants to just redo that existing building as it is and all that, that's one thing. But if he wants to start throwing that out up the street, that's a whole nother thing. And changing everything up there and restore Matthew to me and anybody else in the street.
And by,
I don't think we should be changing the whole overall thing for this one specific thing, he says.
yeah, and by it being a zoning text amendment, that would allow it anywhere within the municipal service district in C2 within the municipal service district. So not all of that, but just part, because 7th Avenue has a lot of different zonings in it currently. So yeah, okay. So what I'm hearing from our folks is that and y'all just tell me if anyone wants to call a vote or not, but that the Downtown Advisory Board consensus is that this is something that's done a little, that we aren't prepared to give any type of recommendation for this because we believe that the comprehensive plan and downtown master plan will better inform things that will be the future zoning for that district.
So I agree, and I would open it up to someone to make a motion for that.
What is the motion?
I would word that a little differently.
We need more time.
It's not that we're not prepared, it's that there are more important things that have to be done before this should be done.
So, okay, so I'll suggest a motion if someone wants to make it the Downtown Advisory Board, or a motion to not recommend this project because a motion to not recommend this project because we would
Zoning that we don't.
yeah, that's right. Okay. We wouldn't, it's getting late today. We would not recommend, the Downtown Advisory Board would not recommend this zoning text amendment, period. And then continuing on the conversation of, we believe that the downtown master plan and comprehensive plan should be done before any major zoning text amendments for districts. How about?
You have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
See that, let's complete a comprehensive plan that includes current historic residents. Was right in that.
Fred.
Word.
Fred's thing.
All right, so we do need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Was Joe second?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Motion
Let me make
carried.
a note, motion.
Builder submitted any plans? Has he done?
Yeah, they have to as a part of their zoning text amendment.
What is it that he's doing?
Hmm?
What is it? Was it 50 units?
No, this is just on the current building that's there.
It's a transmission shop
Um,
on the corner
I thought he's taken that stuff down.
of the foundations.
So this is the building that's like Hagen transmission and this is
Yeah.
the building over.
Right.
Been audio, it's up
Yeah.
audio.
it's like a 2-floor
It was
building.
blue and now it's orange.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there?
And I can't remember if this one's the blue one or the orange.
But I don't think it's the blue one
Orange.
and the white one.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah,
But I think he's taking all that stuff down. Isn't he?
I don't know. but
probably waiting on his
That's.
rezoning.
Yeah.
We need to just kind of high load on that before we rezone the street.
Did you say the council has already voted yes on this?
Take
No, the planning board has.
Build from on that.
Have much influence?
That would make the most sense. Why is anybody building apartments?
We're just another.
Or I mean, we need
This is a hard word.
to provide feedback.
I- it looked like the apartments.
Your question is the,
That's why I
Yes,
asked.
once on the planning board, For the city council.
But do we have text messages?
So,
All
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's work. I got one last thing.
So she'll send it to the council and they'll.
That one, and then
Yeah, this will be included as the rezoning for this. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Actually,
So one last thing that I had on project, this came to the community character team last week. And it's a public art project proposed by,
Oh, that's the art. Okay.
okay. All right, this is a public art project proposed by Sept, which is Storytellers. Something. I can't remember what that stands for. Storytellers Arts Entertainment Education Program. So they received a grant from the Community Foundation of Henderson County. It's not yet publicly announced, but they're announcing it at Art on Main. They, Karen Eve Bain, who is who is the person working on this project, has presented to our community character team about a mural project on private property. And they've already received a couple of different artworks, and our community character team, she'd asked someone to be on their selection committee, and I believe Patsy's.
I was. Better do it.
To help select that final piece. So there's two parts of this project. One is the murals, and then another part is a fiber art project, which is a yarn bombing, which is a temporary installation of yarn bombing on trees and some of the light posts from November to March. Part of that yarn bombing will involve some projects at the farmers market and different things where people can be involved, or a participatory like art. So like I said, the murals will be on private property. At the community character meeting, Linda DiPiola had some interest in her building, which would be above Daddy D's on that wall. And then she's also been talking to, what's the WCCA, whatever they're called now, WNC Source, about that building. So that's going on. Again, it's mostly on private property. But it seemed like the community character team was pretty interested in that. And I don't know, Matthew, if you had anything else on that one.
I mean, it's just, it looks like definitely quality projects and, definitely, I think we could all agree Seventh Avenue, bringing more of an art concept into Seventh Avenue would be beneficial for the district.
I do have one comment, and this relates to an art project that we talked about and then turned out completely different. Do we need more specifically in writing, this is what we think is wonderful and this is what you're doing?
So we didn't have any kind of motion on it. I don't think we need to have any motion on it since that was on public property. Whereas this and semi-permanent, whereas this is on private property.
It does bring up that for future public property, we want to make
Yeah.
sure everything's right and.
Yeah, and
built and delivered.
yeah, and whenever we talked about that one before, I had our process lined out of how we would deal with that. Yeah, but this one didn't fall under that.
And we will be voting on it before we see, I mean, when we get more proposals, right? At some point, I'm sure we'll talk about it again, correct?
I don't think we would be voting on the artwork since it's not on any properties that
Oh,
they'd have their selection committee.
okay. I was still thinking the bridge.
Oh, yeah, the initial proposal was to do the underpass on Maple Street, which would be cool, and that would be something that we would be more of a part of.
Well, Patsy, that's why you're on that selection committee. And I will note one more thing. They use professional mural artists.
Yeah, yeah,
And they would be working with the owners of the property on, the owners of the property would have some input as far as what was gonna be on their building.
yeah.
And then, of course, no cost to them, but they would still have some input into the selection.
Yeah. Does anyone have a Hendo bear that they're, painted bear that they might want to have yard bomb that we can put on 7th Ave? I mean, seriously, I think, because they were showing bicycles that they had covered in yarn, so.
I have no bears.
You have no
I have no
bears.
Let's see if we can collect a couple of them.
Fantastic.
A giant pretzel.
Let's go.
All right, so
Yeah.
anything on that? All right.
Can't wait.
So that should finish up team projects and updates. I got long here, so unless there's any other pending business, I would call for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. This was a
Yeah.
great.
All in
Very.
favor?
Aye.
Good meeting.
You. Yeah.